Hello and welcome to episode 190 of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill. And I think my first comment is COVID continues to ravage the sports world with crazy stuff like all the Wisconsin players turning and games canceled last week. And I just don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know how many more games we're going to have canceled and how many different things are going to be influenced, but it's not going away. It's not going away, and I just saw that, we'll talk about the Steelers later on, but Humphreys, the cornerback, tested positive after the game.
Exactly. And he was around, football is a very close contact sport.
And he's in a lot of tackles, so we'll have to see what happens now with the testing and everything, see where this game's going now, because like we talked about on the show, there's no margin for error, and you're going to be forced at some point in time to add 2 weeks of schedule. That's all. I really, really firmly believe that move the Super Bowl back.
And no matter what happens, this week, let's look to the
Europe. Question.
Okay.
An NFL question. Your biggest surprise, your biggest disappointment of the 30 teams?
This is a very homer pick, but people that heard me talk all off season, I'm shocked the Steelers are 8-0 and in the driver's seat in the AFC. I think they beat the Texans. Or the Texans obviously aren't very good this year, but they beat everybody on their schedule, including the Ravens. They've won in a number of ways. They've overcome some injuries. I think everything else was kind of falling into place. I thought, a couple teams would have been a little better than they were, but nobody as shocking. To me, honestly, and then biggest disappointment, that is a tough one. I guess maybe the 49ers, but they've had a lot of injuries, so it's hard to say.
They've had a massive amount and had some more again this week.
Yeah, they've just lost Kittle probably for the season and Garoppolo, although I'm not sure if that's a loss. He and McMullen seem like pretty interchangeable,
Okay, well, my biggest surprise is the Chargers.
Losing another game?
Well, no, they're fun to watch. I didn't think they'd be able to perform at this level.
No.
I didn't think they'd be playing with a rookie quarterback, and I think he is really looking good. They just have no defense. Somebody better get fired there shortly. They better do something because they've got the 3 games of a 17-point lead in the second half and lost all 3. That's a bad thing when you got a quarterback putting up 30 points.
Actually, I'll add another surprise, and that would be the fact that the Patriots have won 2 games.
And they're my disappointment because I picked them to win the division, remember?
Yeah.
And I thought with Cam Newton, I said, they have a point to prove, they're going to be great. And they're 2-5, and I thought they'd be at least 6-1 at this point. I didn't think they'd lose. So, knowing how I feel about the Patriots, my disappointing team is my pleasant surprise.
Oh, that's nice. Well, I read an article today about the Patriots, and they showed their draft picks for the last 10 years, their first and second round picks. They've almost all busted out. And they haven't won a trade in a long time. Going back to last year, they gave up a second round pick for Mohamed Sanu, who caught 2 passes. They cut him, and he's not even in the league right now. Bill the GM has had a rough couple of years as a draft. People always get so excited when he keeps trading down. They're like, Bill knows what he's doing. And if you look at the last decade, he hasn't really done much. I know they won a couple Super Bowls, so he's got that weird. You can't say anything about his methods. And at the same time, if he had hit on, 30% of those draft picks, they're probably in a very different position right now.
Well, and I agree with you. The Steelers are surprised to me because this is the first year in the last 5 where I didn't make a Vegas bet that the Steelers would take the Super Bowl. I did not bet this year. So I am pleasantly surprised and very happy about it.
Yeah, I know they won surprising amount of games last year with scoring 14 points on offense with the Mason Rudolph-Duck Hodges combo. And that, Roethlisberger, even a washed-up older Roethlisberger, which he hasn't been this year, he's looked pretty good, would have been an upgrade. Mason Rudolph was considered, according to those analytics sites, one of the worst quarterbacks in NFL history. So we had nowhere to go but up. But I just thought, you're probably not going to get all the turnovers like you got last year, and an injury here, injury there. But it's been fantastic as a Steeler fan, obviously.
Obviously.
And while we're here, a historic thing happened. Mike Tomlin became the most winning African American coach of all time as he passed Tony Dungy this weekend with 140 wins.
Yeah, and that's a real accomplishment. And it's a source of pride, and I'm excited about that. That's a very good thing.
And I would say, I think every fan, unless you're a Patriot fan for, 6 years when they won the Super Bowls, probably bashes on their coach quite a bit. And I've been guilty of that with Tomlin too. I felt like he didn't adjust, and last week I don't feel like he always goes for the jugular, but he has been a really great coach. So and more shout out to him. And I think these last 2 seasons, I've seen the things that I've complained about in the past, where the adjustments. I haven't seen the go for the jugular as much, but the adjustments seem to be there. The things that he was brought in to do, that defense looks legit. So.
But you can also appreciate the turmoil that he dealt with and kept calm when he had Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown.
Yeah, well, Antonio Brown. Like I said, I don't count Le'Veon Bell on that.
Yeah, he's still a distraction.
Yeah.
A lot of guys come back, he doesn't come back.
Right, but your locker room also could keep their mouth shut. So
yeah, that's true.
That's the big part of it. If everybody, because I honestly believe, and I do believe Le'Veon when he said it, if everybody had just shut up, he would have come back by week 7. He would have played the rest of the season. But when they started talking, all kinds of trash and jumping on James Conner and all this other stuff, I think it rubbed the guy the wrong way, and I don't necessarily blame him.
It cost a lot of money to make his point.
It did. It cost a ton of money to make his point. But he's on the Chiefs now, so maybe he won.
Yeah, and he's auditioning for whoever he's going to play for next year.
Yes.
So we're at the halfway point of the season. You want to review, or you want to just give? We've prepared for this, but who do you think are going to be your playoff teams? Your 7 and 7.
Well, I think our beloved Steelers are definitely in the playoffs. I think, unfortunately, the Ravens are also in the playoffs.
Okay.
I think the Chiefs are definitely in the playoffs, and I think that's an obvious one. I think the Colts are in. I think the Titans are in. I assume the Bills have to be in because somebody's going to be, winning that division, and I think it's probably going to be the Bills.
Okay.
I think right now I'd probably give the Browns the nod as I guess that's the 7th team. I'd like to say the Dolphins, but the Browns I think have it.
The Browns haven't shown me they can beat anybody good.
No, but I think they've got a lot of nobody good left on their schedule that's really going to help them get in. Do you have anybody different in those 7?
Let's see. I would take the Dolphins right now over the Browns.
I think if Tua had looked a little...
I know they have a way to go.
Yeah.
But I like their defense.
I love that coach.
I like the coach.
Yeah. And I'm a big Tua fan, and I hope Tua, as people pointed out, he didn't, that was a crazy game. They got 2 defensive scores. They had the return touchdown, and he threw for 95 yards on the touchdown and had a fumble, but didn't look terrible by any stretch. But he really wasn't asked to do very much. And I hope just like Burrow.
My teams on the fence are going to be the Texans, the Browns, and the Dolphins. And two of those three teams are going to get in.
What's your third team?
The Texans.
The Texans.
The Titans, the Browns, and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And 2 of those 3 teams are getting. I just don't know which 2 will get in.
Well, the Titans made a move.
It was a disappointing game yesterday too.
Yeah. And the NFC, I think, is much tougher. I mean, I guess you got to pick Philadelphia from and nobody else out of that division. I guess they're going to win it by default.
Yep.
You got to go with Tampa.
Yep.
I think the Saints probably sneak in.
The Saints are in.
I like Seattle still. I like Green Bay still. I mean, I don't like Green Bay to win it all, but I like Green Bay. The Rams look bad. The 49ers are really beat up, and I thought both those teams had a shot. I mean, it's tough. Like, that's a real weird, I'm searching in my mind for another team that really impressed me. I think the winner's coming out of the...
I get to put the Cardinals
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Cardinals. That's the other.
I can put the Cardinals in. And they've been wildly inconsistent, but I think they've got a good shot.
Yeah. But you look at that, I mean, AFC East is just beyond terrible. I mean, that's an embarrassing. It's odd to have an entire division be that bad. I mean, the AFC East was like that for a long time, but the Patriots were always in it. You know, so it's like they brought everybody else up. But I feel like every NFC team is really flawed, far more so than the AFC teams.
Did the Jets win a game?
I don't think the Jets want to win a game. I know they saw today that Sam Darnold is going to be reevaluated, get another MRI on the shoulder, which means it's going to be Flacco, which, you know. And I talked about it a little bit with, you know, on a couple podcasts ago. But I mean, I think right now, and especially you look at the special quarterbacks that are coming out, specifically Trevor Lawrence. I think Patrick Mahomes, you obviously wouldn't draft over him. Kyler Murray, maybe Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. But I think every other team would probably take him.
I think you're right.
And including, and I know this is blasphemous to say, and people are going to say you're a Steeler fan, you're just hating, but I think the Ravens might. I think, you know, Lamar has as great as he can be, and he certainly deserved the MVP last year. He's a very exciting player, and he's scary to watch on the other side of the field, but I feel like he's got some holes in his game, and it's shown up in all the big games they've had. When he's asked to throw the ball, and then, you know, because he would have, I mean, at the beginning of the season, he would have been on my list of, well, the Ravens weren't looking for a quarterback. But again, they're not going to be in a position to draft Trevor Lawrence, so it's not going to be an issue. But I was just, you know.
Yeah. All right, college football, I got to say,
Sorry.
the Oklahoma State-Texas game was a typical Oklahoma State game.
Yeah.
You gain 500 yards, the other team gains about 280, and you lose.
It's impressive.
You lose on a kick return, and you lose on some really bad zebra calls. I mean, it was just one of those things. You could just see it. Texas was never out of it. And in the fourth quarter, Sam Ellinger is a fourth quarter quarterback, and he's an overtime quarterback, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
That's sad. College, I mean, Clemson won without Trevor Lawrence. They're going to play without Trevor Lawrence. I think they're going to beat Notre Dame because I just don't think Notre Dame is very good.
No.
I think Clemson is good enough to beat Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence, and that's a statement. But it just shows me how overrated Notre Dame is. So I'm definitely going to go there. Jim Harbaugh's got to be in massive trouble at Michigan, losing to a Michigan State team that lost to Rutgers.
They were a 21-point favorite.
Yeah.
And they lost. Yeah, I think he's been in trouble the last couple of seasons, but there's always been that, you know, they sneak one out here, sneak one out there, and you keep going. But I think this might have been the nail in the coffin if you're an alumni. You're just like,
I think this one might have been. And I think it might be he might want out now, too.
Yeah.
He might want, and there'll be some, he was decent in the pros. He'll go back to the pros.
Yeah.
But the Big Ten is Ohio State and whoever else you want to throw in there. But there really isn't a number. I don't think there's a number 2 team in the Big Ten.
No, it's Alabama, it's Clemson, it's Ohio State, and I don't know.
And Coastal Carolina.
Coastal Carolina, there you go. I think, being as this is the crazy time that we're living in, I think if they're undefeated, you throw them in the mix. You get them in there.
I think they're 15 now.
Yeah, but I think they're gonna fit. They're in that USC or UC or USF boat where UCF, USF, all those schools where like you have to basically have like 4 undefeated seasons in a row where you finally get to play somebody, and even then you might still be the 7th rated team at the end of the year. Like it's just that.
Okay, well there's our talk now. Cincinnati has demolished everybody that played in their conference.
Yeah.
And they're now number 6. And you know that of the teams in front of them, I already told you I think Notre Dame will lose this week.
Right.
And then you got Georgia and Alabama both in the top 5. Right?
Right.
I think Georgia's still in the top 5.
I believe so. Send us a tweet if we're wrong. You know, let us know.
Yeah. There's going to be 2 losers. So they can technically finish the season at 4th if they don't lose any games. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. I'm rooting for that outcome to happen.
I always am. As people have known, listening to the show, I'm always rooting for that.
And then I'll make another prediction. If that happens, Luke Fickell will go somewhere else, and Cincinnati descends back to the depths of the AAC.
Maybe he'll go to LSU, who's having a terrible season.
Maybe Luke Fickell goes to Michigan.
Or Michigan, yeah.
I know he's an Ohio State guy.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting possibilities.
Very much so. Yeah, you have to leave the state of Ohio. Yeah.
I got a business moment for us, though.
Okay.
We need to think about this. So, we talked about the show last week. Adam Silver announced that he could try and start the season around December 22nd. So they would have like Christmas week being opening week for the NBA. And I talked last week about how much I thought that was a good idea and how it was they could own that weekend and be a great way for the NBA to start. Well, the Players Association is pushing back, think it's too soon, and they're lobbying for King Weekend.
Yes.
And I don't think that's going to happen, and I think the business of basketball is going to be the reason. You can't afford to miss that big ABC quadruple header if you're the NBA.
No.
You can't miss that, and you can't not play that many games in good basketball season weather. So they're going to find a way to get the Players Association to agree to start December 22nd week. They'll find agreement. Players Association will get whatever they want to get out of it. They'll get out of it. But that will have to happen. If it doesn't, I just don't see it. I mean, it'd be a disaster for the NBA financially.
Well, due to the fact that, our most socialist league, the NBA, where everybody has a say, and it's a wonderful place. I mean, I think that, when you explain the economics to even guys like LeBron James who want more time off, they'll understand the Christmas thing. It's more money for them, and they'll get it.
Yeah.
And again, because it
would affect the salary cap. It would affect too many things.
Yeah.
Now, I can see the players' point of view that they just got done playing.
Some of them.
And it seems too close, but yeah, it's too close this year, but it won't be too close next year.
No, and it's not too close.
I told you last week too that I think this will become the opening weekend for the NBA in the future too.
Right, but it's not too close for the Warriors and some other teams. They're ready. They're chomping at the bit.
No, those 8 teams are chomping at the bit to play.
And while we're on the NBA, what do you think of Steve Nash's? What do you think of Steve Nash's coaching staff?
It's a very interesting coaching staff. I would never have thought that Mark Stoudemire could be a basketball coach.
I never thought Mike D'Antoni would be his assistant head coach.
So Mike D'Antoni signed to go to Brooklyn today?
Yeah. We signed a couple days ago, yeah. So they've got a really good assistant from a defensive assistant. You got D'Antoni, Amari Stoudemire, and Steve Nash. You got the 10 seconds or less Suns back together on the bench. I mean,
fun.
That's if you're Steve Nash, that's a great little hive mind behind you. And
I like the coaching staff. I'm still not sure Kyrie is the guy I want on my team.
No. Although Kyrie does have a ring and played incredibly well in that series. He was,
Yep.
He was.
He's one of those guys that causes too much drama.
Well,
My kind of guy.
even recently, you just go back to the KD podcast, and he basically, I don't know if he's walked these comments back, but he essentially said, we don't really need a coach. We're all our own coaches. And
yeah, I heard him say that.
It's like, you just got Steve Nash, the guy you clearly wanted. He's putting together this great staff. He's worked with KD. He's done a lot of stuff, and now you're going to just, slag off your coach on a podcast. Like, I know that wasn't, I don't know if that was his intent, but it, when you add that to the body of Kyrie quotes, it just makes you just roll your eyes and you're just like, nah, again. And it looks like we're up for maybe one of the least fun drafts in a long time.
Well, if you're the Timberwolves and you got number 1, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm definitely shopping it. I don't know what's out there for it, but even if it's just moving down a couple spots with Charlotte, who apparently loves James Wiseman. Wiseman doesn't seem like a good fit along with, Towns and Russell. I don't know what to do because I honestly don't like either one of those players. They're in it's a bad situation, and it just sucks that the year, you get the number 1 pick and there's no consensus number 1. And it's one of those drafts where people are they're already saying like, the guy who's drafted 12th to 15th will probably be the best player in this draft somehow.
Well, it's I'm Minnesota, I'm taking Ball.
Oh yeah, despite his.
And the reason I'm taking him,
Mm-hmm.
nobody talks about basketball in Minnesota. So I'm going to take him so everybody starts talking about basketball in Minnesota.
Yeah, apparently he's done really poorly in all of his pre-draft interviews, is what everyone is saying. So he's rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. His dad has already started talking. He brought up comments about, bad coaches in LA and how he doesn't want his son to play for the Lakers again. They already did that once, so.
We'll have to see. It's going to be interesting. It was November 17th, I think it is, right?
Yeah. I'm really interested because, like I said, I think, the Warriors are so close. They might not need anybody to compete for it. They probably don't need anybody to compete for a title, but I think they're a player away from being the favorite, assuming everybody's back and healthy. And they've got the number 2 pick. They have Minnesota's first next year. They have their own first next year. They've got a $17 million trade exception. So they've got a couple of moves in them. I don't know what's out there, but they've got some real moves, and it could be really interesting. I've heard some things here and there. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about, what do you think of the big rumor right now is a trade built around Eric Bledsoe and Victor Oladipo, so that Victor Oladipo would go to Milwaukee to be Giannis's running mate?
You know what? I'm just not a big fan of either of them.
No. Well, we know Bledsoe can't play in the playoffs.
He's consistent in his career. He's had a great year and he's had terrible years.
Yeah.
He's got some injuries. I just don't know. If I'm Giannis, I sure like the Chris Paul possibility, if that's still a possibility.
Right.
And I have to think it is, but I mean, that to me is the only difference maker for Milwaukee. It's got to be somebody with the maturity and the vision and the drive and the respect to mold that team.
Well, you need somebody that can set up the offense in the half court when they wall it off so that Giannis can't get past the wall. Like you need somebody that can do something, and Chris Paul certainly can. I mean, if you're Milwaukee, you're in a really tough position because I think Giannis is one of those guys that if you were able to somehow pull off the right move, I think he'd sign that extension. But
I think he would too. I think his heart would tell him to do that, but you've got to show him something. There's got to be something this year that gets him over the top. They can't do a playoff and out again.
No, and that team they have now is constructed can't do it. The 20-something pick in the draft is going to be the guy that does it. There's really no free agents out there to go get that are, of any significant value. So, I mean, what is the trade you can pull off?
I think you bite the bullet, move some pieces around, and take on Paul's contract.
It seems like if you're Milwaukee, you're almost like in that, it looks like you're going to lose the game of chess, but you're just trying to, do whatever you can and hope that something happens. Because it just feels like, we've seen it with so many teams, with LeBron when they try to put pieces around him. I know people hate him, but, the Magic for a while did a lot of that, try to win now and didn't really build the best team around Dwight for a while. So you get stuck in this thing where you've lost all your draft picks and you have all these bad contracts on your roster and your superstar wants to win, so it goes somewhere else. And I don't want to see that. I mean, because Milwaukee's got a great fan base, cool jerseys.
Yep.
And we'll talk about it more as the NBA approaches and we get something to see what happens. But, when you look at Brooklyn, Boston, Miami, the Lakers, I guess you still got to throw the Nuggets, and I guess you got to put the Clippers in that mix, the Blazers. Like it's a big hurdle to climb, and they can't win with what they got now. So,
well, let's talk a little entertainment. What do you got?
I jumped on the Fargo season 4 bandwagon. I've been trying to get you to watch the first 3 seasons for the longest time. So I've obviously been a big Fargo guy, but I finally started watching, and it's fantastic. I'm loving it.
Love the characters, love the time frame, love the setting.
And I texted you last night. Oliphant having a great year. He's on The Mandalorian, which is obviously a big Disney Plus show, and he shows up in season 4 of Fargo. And I immediately was like, I texted you right away. I was like, you didn't even tell me Oliphant was on season 4.
He's my guy.
Yeah.
Loving that. Loving Fargo. Loving inside the Nexus cult on Stars. It's 4 episodes. I watched The Vow on HBO. This is much better, much more detail, much better flow. You're not trying to stretch it. It's 4 episodes. You're not trying to stretch it out into 8 episodes, and I think it makes a huge difference.
8 episodes. This got
the information's not repetitive. It's much tighter. It's much more focused. It's really, really good.
Now, for those out there, because both Hulu and Amazon offer your free 7-day trial of Stars, is the entire docuseries on Stars right now, or do you have to? Or is it weekly still? If you
wait till this Sunday, all 4 will be on.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah,
because I really did.
3 on now, and I'm telling you, it's really good. I mean, you're so focused and so tight, and really more probing than the HBO one.
Which is what I hope, because he's been in the news, Keith Raniere, who was the cult leader or whatever you want to call him, the vanguard of this whole thing, and just based on the Vow one, you don't feel like you have enough. Where you're sort of like, it's like, yeah.
This one, I left last night thinking, wow, I cannot believe all these women in this organization, intelligent people, could fall for this shit. I just couldn't believe it. I was in shock.
No, and
each week has become more and more.
Wow. All right, I got to check that one out, though.
It's awesome.
We ended up watching, I don't know how many Halloween movies, but I'm going to give an unpopular movie opinion award. I don't think Halloween is a very good movie.
Okay.
I think Jamie Lee Curtis is genuinely bad in it. I think the dialogue is clunky. And you get very little backstory, and the kills are kind of lame. Like, I know it's one of the genre starters. And I'm not going to take away from the genre starter, and there's cool shots, but the movie itself is borderline unwatchable, I would say. I know that's blasphemous to say.
That you thought was a good Halloween movie?
Well, sticking in that late 70s, early 80s era, I actually thought the original Nightmare on Elm Street was really good. I enjoyed that quite a bit. We did the classics. We did It, The Shining. We watched the entire Conjuring universe, including The Nun and La Llorona.
Okay.
And those are all fun ghost movies. I liked The Relic, which came out this year. Or just Relic, not The Relic. The Relic is a movie from like 10 years ago that's just eh. Relic from this year was really good. The Wretched from this year was really good. There was a lot, honestly.
Okay.
And again, I think I said this on the podcast before, but having watched a lot of Stephen King recently, I think Tim Curry's It is a scarier clown than the new It. The new movie is far superior than the TV miniseries. But Tim Curry, scarier than the new guy.
I get it. Tim Curry's good in that role.
He's fantastic in that role. And I feel like he's doing it without, vintage clown costumes and that thing where you put your head down and you put your eyes up. Scary face that has just become boringly cliched at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He's able to do it through, mannerisms and his smile and some other aspects that I think just make it,
He's much more animated in the role, too.
And he feels like a clown. I think it's scary when you look like a slightly demented real clown, not some horror movie adaptation of a clown.
Yeah.
But he could be at a kid's birthday party and you'd be like, I'm a little nervous about that guy being here, but he's, we paying him, whatever. And I think that adds to the scare of it, And I have a repeat food moment. Gus's world famous fried chicken.
Yeah, it's the best.
It's really good fried chicken. And I got it through Uber. I got it through DoorDash. And they package it really well. It was still hot. It's juicy. It's got just the right kick and spice to it. It's just a really good chicken. I don't know what else to say.
You still get the 2 slices of gummy white bread?
You get the slices of gummy white bread if that's what you want. They have some nice sides. It's a very simple menu. You get, and you can get chicken by the piece. Chicken, whatever you want to get, but it's if you're near Gus's, which I think is just
Gus's is good. I remember the first time I went, and my choices were 2, 4, 6, white, darker mix, and that was it. But it came in a paper bag, and it was really good.
Yeah, and they've expanded now. You've got probably 5 or 6 sides, and you can get chicken tenders. But other than that, it's very simple. And they have chess pie, sweet potato pie, and they've grown a little bit, but it's still keep it simple, stupid formula of food, and it works for me. It's very good.
Okay. Well, I haven't been out myself. I haven't had any food moments at all.
Well, I was able to, my taste and smell has sort of come back, so I really felt like
This is really good news.
yeah, so I felt like some fried chicken, and I called up Uber Eats or DoorDash, I can't remember which one, and they brought it, and it's just real good fried chicken.
My last intake, Undone on HBO with Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
It's very good. We've watched the two episodes so far. It's very good. It's very intriguing, very well laid out, good mystery.
Nice.
All right, everybody. Well, we hope we covered a lot. I hope we entertained you tonight. Forgive our Steeler bias, but it's there. That's what you do about it.
Well, I live in New Orleans, and they've been they black out the local games on DirecTV. The Steelers have been 3 of those games this year, and none of them were against the Saints. So right now, they're the only NFL undefeated team. So you're gonna have to,
Well, hopefully we get to see against the Cowboys. I will be watching the Bucs tonight.
Yes.
I will be watching the pre-Antonio Brown Buccaneers tonight as they take on the G-Men. And I'll probably watch that for a half. And I assume it will be over at the half.
I think sadly, yes. Tampa Bay. And and Tom's roommate will be at his house watching Antonio Brown, who's once again living with him.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the sidelines. Would you allowed to be on the sidelines?
I don't know. I was wondering that. I figured between COVID protocol and,
Yeah, maybe so.
But his teammates say he's in incredible shape. And,
Hey, there's no doubt he can play football.
Yeah.
And, Brady would never go this far out of his way unless he thought he was going to be a dynamic contributor.
Right. And I think Brady knows that, the Bill's going down. This is my chance to, once and for all end that argument.
I won a Super Bowl without Belichick. This guy's going to help me get it.
Exactly.
And Antonio Brown has to prove to the world that he's still a relevant player. So it's going to be an interesting marriage.
Exactly. All right. So until next week, please hit up my dad through Twitter with some comments and some questions. We'd like to have a mailbag episode if people have questions for us. I think that'd be fun. So
that would be great. I'll put that out on Twitter as well. Ask it for people.
Perfect.
And Jason, when you get your test, give me your test results. So I can give a social media update on your COVID condition.
Yes. I don't know when that's going to be, but I'm excited to hopefully. It's been over 6 weeks. Many positive tests, but hopefully, hopefully this is the end for now.